Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Steven. For those of you who are paying strict attention to the decorations in my office, you can clearly see that I am broadcasting from a remote location this time. Sandy and I have decided to travel to Las Vegas. We're staying at the Bellagio Hotel. We've got a lovely room. We're celebrating both our anniversary. We've been married 24 years now, along with Sandy's birthday that's upcoming this month. So we figured we'd package it all together. But because we are who we are, we have no choice but to do some administrative work. And this particular blog is being filmed from our palatial suite here at the Bellagio. In any event, this blog is entitled A Diminutive Demurrer. And it's kind of a take on a legal event that took place about a week and a half ago. It's very, very interesting. And it dovetails very nicely into what's happened at the Supreme Court level with New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Braun. And a little backstory. So we have a case that we're currently defending right now of an individual who's being prosecuted for having a firearm without having a CCW. I won't go into the facts of that particular case, but we have a process that we've established over the years with a variety of different city attorneys. It's typically that offense is prosecuted by city attorneys as it falls into a misdemeanor category. So we've got, like I said, somewhat of a process already established. Well, about 2 weeks ago, Cosmo, Lieutenant Colonel, sent over to me a copy of a demurrer that he was going to file in that case. Now, let me explain what a demurrer is. Demurrer is basically Latin for so what, okay? You're being prosecuted for a crime. Your argument is that that crime in and of itself is facially invalid, that there is no criminal or illegal activity associated with your conduct, that it's been misapplied as criminal conduct. So, you're not arguing the facts of the case. You're basically saying, look, assuming that all the facts are absolutely true, so what? The case should be dismissed. So he sends me this demurrer that he's going to file in the case, and I raised an eyebrow thinking, what is your argument on this? And it's based on an analysis of New York Rifle and Pistol. So I immediately call him up and I said, what are you doing? What's the logic behind this? And he said, okay, walk with me through this analysis. The air is going to get pretty thin up here, but I think we have to file this case, this demurrer. Probably not going to prevail on it, but I think that in order to protect us against ineffective assistance of counsel, we at least have to file it. And essentially it says, okay, look, the only way that somebody could get a concealed weapons permit prior to Braun decision was that you would have to go before a magistrate and petition that you had a unique level of good cause. Well, we now know that that is an illegal requirement. Okay, effectively, it invalidates the law after New York Rifle and Pistol. They said, look, that you can't do that, issuing agencies. That is a violation of their constitutional rights. More importantly, the court also articulated that people have a fundamental right to keep and bear arms, and more specifically, to bear arms outside of their home. So, the theory here is you cannot be forced to commit an illegal act, petitioning for a CCW that's fundamentally flawed because of the good cause requirement, in order to exercise a fundamental right. Because you cannot be required to engage in this illegal conduct, you should be allowed to just unfetteredly walk outside your home with a firearm. So again, we had very, very little hope that something like this would actually prevail, but we needed to file it somewhat pro forma. Well, a colleague of ours sent over a demurrer, almost identical to the demurrer that the lieutenant colonel filed in our case up in Sacramento. In this case, it's called the Diaz case, People v. Diaz. we had an individual, not a choir boy by any stretch of the imagination. The guy had some fairly nefarious conduct associated with his activities, but he was carrying a gun without having a CCW, also ingesting marijuana and doing all sorts of other things. But the defense counsel filed a demurrer. The presiding judge, Stephen White, up in Sacramento, basically said, your argument is sound. I'm granting the demurrer. Now, do not misinterpret this as saying, oh, well, the need for a CCW has now been obviated. I can go ahead and start carrying a gun. Because the Justice Department has now essentially invalidated the good cause requirement, it is an objective determination as to whether or not you should get a CCW. And as a result of that, the issuance of a CCW is presumptively valid. And in the Kavanaugh concurring opinion, he specifically says, as long as the CCW issuing policy that the states offer are objective, then they are in fact valid. However, because these cases that I'm referring to took place prior to the issuance of the opinion in Braun, those cases are subject to demurrer. So the point that I'm making, and the reason that I wanted to bring this up, is that at least at the trial court level, we see now that these judges are taking Braun seriously. And in the case of Stephen Wright, we're not talking about somebody who is a rabid pro-gun advocate. Quite the opposite. This guy was put on the bench by Gray Davis, okay? He's been on the bench for a number of years. So, in fact, in his actual opinion, sustaining the demurrer, he says, I'm not particularly happy about the outcome of this, but our hands are tied. This is what the Supreme Court has said. So it's instructive. It shows that little cracks of light are starting to break through the calcified edifice of, authoritarianism, which I kind of like that sort of metaphorical alliteration there. In any event, definitely read the blog. I think you'll find it incredibly interesting. Wish Sandy and I luck in Las Vegas. We'll try to make as much money as possible. And as always, train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, train with purpose. Above all else, stay safe.